Good morning and welcome to the Board of Commissioners meeting. It is 10 o'clock on 11/3/2022. So at this time, I'll call to order the Douglas County Board of County Commissioners meeting for the November 3rd, 2022 meeting, and ask you all please rise and where appropriate, please take off your hats. And we'll be led by the Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner John Engels.
All former and current military salute the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen.
So I want to indicate that Commissioner Vice Chair Wes Rice is joining us via Zoom this morning. He's out of state, and the other four commissioners are here and present. So at this time, we'll go into public comment. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per speaker unless additional time is granted by the board chairperson. The Board of Commissioners uses timing lights to ensure that everyone has an opportunity to speak. You will see a green light when you begin, and then a yellow light, which indicates that you have 30 seconds left and should conclude your comments. Once the light turns red, we ask you to please sit down. In addition to open and public comment will also be taken on administrative agenda items that are identified for possible action and closing public comment. If you plan to speak on a specific agenda item that is on the administrative agenda and identified for possible action, we ask you to please provide your public comment when that agenda item is heard. For our convenience this morning, without Commissioner Rice being in attendance, Commissioner Noah Sad has graciously accepted the task of controlling the timing lights this morning. I'm putting words in your mouth, I know. So, and I would ask you also, not that anybody can get a telephone signal here in this room. I know I can't, and many others can't. But if you would please silence your personal devices so that we don't interrupt any of the speakers. So at this time, public comment will be taken on those items that are within the jurisdiction and control of the Douglas County Board of County Commissioners. Public comment. So, and we ask you to, Ted, can you just give me a minute? I would just want a little housekeeping, okay? Just a little housekeeping, okay? If you can give me a minute for a little housekeeping, okay? That's all. Anyways, what I wanted to indicate is when you approach the podium, please sign in, state your name, and your 3 minutes will begin when you begin speaking. Okay, thank you. Not trying to interrupt you or to.
There we go. Okay, we'll start now. I have some documents I want to put on record. It's a public records request, NRS 239. It goes on to explain the public records. It's a long issue. Basically, we can't request confidential security numbers, people's phone numbers, whatnot, but we're entitled to all county documents that are of record. In fact, it goes on to say, please note that under NRS 239-0107, county staff has until the end of the 5th business day after the request to furnish the public record book in response to the request. So they have 5 days, and then it's against the law, period. It was passed in 1967. Okay, I have a request form in here that I made a request for. I want that on record because it's obvious what I asked for. I've made 2 or 3 requests every week. 10/6, I made 7 items. They've been out there for 20 working days unanswered. On 10/12, I put 6 requests in, 16 working days unanswered. On 10/24, I put 4 requests in, 8 working days unanswered. Some of these I got partial answers on, period. I've also put a permit in here. It's an Acela that they sent me on Service Drive, permit number DB21834. It's a sign off. This permit, NRS requires an electrical contractor to pull it. There's no contractor listed here. Okay, I did not receive any of the corrections on this list, none of them. Every one of them has corrections. The correction has a letter from the engineer of record. I don't believe they have it. I think Mr. Ritchie is working with me on this. He's also asked for it. He hasn't sent it to me, so I'm going to presume they do not have this record. This was part of the electrical meeting they had trying to eliminate 8027 that everybody, Terry Taylor and the rest of them talked about what kind of shape this was in. Now, there was people on there, electrical engineers, that said he should be fired. If you go back to the minutes. It was signed off on 12/6/21 by a person that has absolutely no electrical certification at all, which in our 8027 says they shall be certified if they're going to sign this off. All I get is a runaround from the administrative assistant and Reno. Now I'm working with Mr. Ritchie and our DA. They've been very helpful, but it's kind of ludicrous that our DA's office has to work on public requests. Don't you think they have more important things to do than to babysit our county people? You guys are responsible for our county manager that's not doing this. Thank you.
Good morning, Ellie Waller. I'm requesting that the Board of Commissioners enlist the Regional Transportation Commission and Public Works to coordinate with NDOT on the possibility of signage stating logging trucks are prohibited from using Topsy Lane. The lame excuse from Marshall Development Team running the sawmill says they can't control their drivers. I have personally experienced logging trucks intentionally bypassing the old Clear Creek Road they're supposed to use. I say find them and post the fine on the signage. Be reminded, holiday season is coming up. Public health and safety is an issue. Next, I'm speaking to item 1 on the agenda. It's presentation only. The NDOT County Consultation Process, NDOT Annual Work Program. From their page, the One Nevada Transportation Plan provides a common foundation and shared policy framework for making more informed, data-driven, transparent, and responsive transportation invest decisions. It is committed to robust community engagement and agency collaboration for this process. On their site, there is a project, NDOT XS 2022-0009, non-NDOT-led project, Sand Harbor to Spooner, parking, transit, trail, and safety. There is funding noted in 2023. If they're not the lead, who is? Is Douglas County going to be responsible for funding there? I'd like to know. Next, this evening is the Highway Corridor Management Plan. I hope to see many faces there. This is a major process breakdown. Please clarify we have a non-binding agreement. In the January 20th, 2022 meeting, page 235 of that meeting, this project charter is an agreement between the sponsor NDOT, Douglas County, and various associated agencies. The non-binding agreement is in there. We need to make sure that that is being held to standard. When does NDOT plan on presenting to you as a board? Does the county manager have the authority to coordinate with NDOT and request a postponement of their proposed closing date of this process this winter, as Douglas County has not been accurately or adequately heard from, at least from the public? These meetings are open. We put little stickers on boards. Do we really get heard? I'd like to know who the stakeholders are that have pushed some of the suggestions without engaging Douglas County on some of the misguided proposals. I do believe that the left-hand turn lanes are advisable into residential areas. Free microtransit is a mythical proposal. Let's get that straight. Douglas County, as all jurisdictions, will be paying for free microtransit. Thank you.
For the record, Jeannie Shizuru, I'm speaking in support of what Ellie Waller has just said. This transportation plan that the NDOT is performing a reaching out listening tour today at 3 o'clock at the lake is one of two that they have scheduled recently at the lake. And so nobody in the valley was included. And come to find out, the commissioners are really not included in that process. The Transportation Committee was not included in that process. Apparently, Scott Morgan was delegated that responsibility way back when. But my problem is that on May 17th, South Lake Tahoe quashed the bypass, quashed the 4-lane get around the casinos. And soon thereafter, our commission minimized how much we were going to be willing to pay for the Main Street Management Transportation program through town. But NDOT has been quietly proceeding with their plan, including finishing the study for this plan on December 31st. At the very least, the commissioners should be involved, should hold a public meeting about what this continuation of a plan that got somehow slammed through after the bypass went away. The commissioners should be involved in it, and the members of Douglas County, including the Valley, should have a whole hearing of what they are doing. There is a disconnect between taking the big boulder of the big lake plan of the bypass out of the way and then having NDOT just proceed forward what their piecemeal plan from Spooner Summit to the casino corridor. It's wrong, and it affects the GID there. It affects the Skyline Homeowners Association, and it affects all of us in Douglas County that are somehow concerned that some kind of woke green energy environmental plans of bike lanes and reduction of lanes to 2 lanes, which will purposely slow down traffic. We all know anytime the lanes change back or forth, it's a holy mess. And they are planning several changes of lanes during that corridor. And I like the 4 lanes going through 2 lanes on either side. And then if you have to do road work, one of them gets marked off so you can't go there. But it's a very clear, simple traffic lane that's going through town right now. And at the very least, this NDOT transportation plan, even if they have all the rights to continue with this plan, it should not happen before the Main Street Management Plan comes up with what they are or they aren't going to do in the casino corridor in Douglas County. And certainly so that even the citizens of Douglas County are aware of whatever financial obligations they might still seek from us. And we also should have a very clear picture of what funds that NDOT might be requiring for Douglas County.
Before I get started, I wanted to clarify. So my statements are about the Painted Rock Mine, which isn't specifically on the agenda, but I know BLM is going to address it. Should I wait until their topic comes up?
And the answer would be no, you want to address that now because the BLM is a presentation only item, not an action item. So yes, that now would be the appropriate time to do that.
All right. So Julie Shepherd in the Johnson Lane area, the Painted Rock Mine, which everybody likes to call PRM, which sounds so innocent. I like it to call it the rock quarry, or the project that's going to put 170 heavy gravel trucks on Johnson Lane every day. Or I call it the project that keeps me awake at night. Johnson Lane is a wonderful rural community with wonderful people. We've got kids on dirt bikes that go up to the country store and gas up and then right up the road to the BLM land. We've got in the summer lemonade stands on Johnson Lane. Then you've got the old guys, of course, I'm old now, so in their quads going down to get milk at the country store. So when I was growing up, both my brothers rode dirt bikes and they'd get on them and go to the field and ride around. So when I see the kids gassing up at the gas station, that's exactly what it reminded me of. It's just, this may sound strange, but to me, that's like freedom. The parents are letting their kids go out and explore. They're not, putting every minute into planned activities. So that I think that's one of the reasons that parents love having their kids in the neighborhood. They can just send them out and explore. But now imagine 170 heavy gravel trucks going up and down the road, shooting by the country store. And is this what the county envisioned when land use goal number 6 was written, that says to identify particular areas within Douglas County where residents desire to preserve or develop distinctly rural communities? Again, is that compatible with 170 gravel trucks going up and down? 170 gravel trucks going by lemonade stand. There's these kids that are out there every day in the summer. 170 gravel trucks going by the kids riding their dirt bikes up to the BLM land. Or 170 gravel trucks going by the old guys in their quads going down to get milk because their wife said there wasn't enough for breakfast. Somehow I doubt it. Your consideration is appreciated. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Ernie Moyano. I live in the Johnson Lane area. My issue today is the Painted Rock Mine also. I just want to probably repeat many things you already heard, maybe a couple things you haven't, that concern me. One, I'm sure you've heard, is 170 trucks a day, 6 days a week, from basically daybreak to dark. I think that's just exorbitant. Not just noise, mostly, probably more than anything, safety. I am a retired gravel truck driver, so I know what I'm talking about when it comes to trucks going down roads with loads of gravel. The noise is probably one of the biggest concerns of most people, because the people who live directly on Johnson Lane, that's ridiculous. And even where I live, a block off of Johnson Lane, I mean, every time a truck, I pay attention now, every time a truck drives up Johnson Lane or up Fremont, I can hear it clearly when I'm in my backyard. Dust is another issue. Everybody speaks of the water concerns from the mine itself. Just too many days, too many hours. I can't even imagine that somebody would be okay with 6 days a week, like 14 hours, 12, 14 hours a day, 170 trucks a day. I haven't really done the math, but that's a lot of trucks. It's going to be at least 4 or 5 trucks on that road at any given moment in a day on that road. Noise, another noise that I've never heard addressed in this is Jake brakes or exhaust brakes on the trucks. This is a downhill slope, not great, but it's a downhill slope on that road heading to 395. And they are going to be using their Jake brakes because they don't want to wear their brake pads out. I drove truck and my boss always told me, don't be on the brakes, use your Jake, slow down, you know. So that's a big concern for noise, because that's noisy, period. The other issue I have is I have experienced this already coming off of 395 onto Johnson Lane behind commerce trucks that are going into the industrial area there. And if there's more than a truck in the turn lane coming south and turning left onto Johnson, if there's more than one truck in that lane, more often than not, you miss the light. That's a long light. So now you sit through 2 light changes with just those trucks, not any gravel trucks yet. So that's going to be a huge issue, I believe. I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Elizabeth Learnhardt from Safford Cove. Before I start, I have a request from Phil Schloss, who has, I'll sign in, who cannot be here, but has a public statement and wants it to be read into the record. He's doing his public duty as poll watcher right now.
So
I don't know
So
if
Ms.
that-
Leinhardt, please sign in.
Yes, I
And-
do.
And number one, and number two, you can submit his comments in writing if you wish to,
Okay,
but you're not allowed 3 minutes for you and 3 minutes for him.
okay, thank you for
So,
clarifying this.
yeah.
I want to talk to discussion number one on the NDOT I-50 corridor plans. And I hope this will be the beginning of an open and transparent dialogue with the ability to input by all stakeholders. Unlike the event of last week and the previous 3 events that I attended. As Chairman Mark Gardner mentioned to us at this week's GGG meeting, he's not in favor of roundabouts or lane reductions because he believes their safety records are not ideal. I would like to contribute data from NDOT's own webpage to support his concerns. The first page of the proposal from NDOT, and I have the documentation and will submit it, lists 6 main objectives. Number 1 being safety. Yet their own webpage contradicts this. Nevada Traffic Safety Crash Facts, page 6, lists fatality in Douglas County as 2% of the overall fatalities in Nevada. And this is for the time frame of 2015 to 19, so 4 years. Speed is only the 3rd place in a crash cause. So this is their main issue, to reduce speed and therefore reduce crashes on the 13-mile stretch up at Spooner to Round Hill. Page 58 shows a county map with dots for the location of fatal crashes from the same time period, listing it as 32 in that 4 years, which makes it 6 per year. Only 3 happened between Spooner Summit and Round Hill in 5 years. Chapter 2, page 55, shows a table comparing crashes on roads with different numbers of lanes. The data is excellent, by the way. I highly recommend them to read their own data. Fatal crashes happen 9 times more often in 2 lanes over the 4-lane roads. Injury crashes 14 times more, and so on, with an all-crash course 3 times more frequent on 2-lane roads. And this is not just a fact in Nevada. I found other incidences on a simple Google search. The Des Moines Register, which I included for your information, found that the crash rate per 100 million travels for 5 years on 2-lane road was about double that for 4-lane road, numbers being 82 over 50. On municipal roads, it was 250 through versus 100. Again, more than 50% more. Fatal crashes were even 4 times more, 6% 4 lanes, 25% in 2 lanes. So in this article, it was also shown that changing traffic speed, changing lanes ongoing like NDOT proposes for this road makes it unsafe. Safety is a continuous straight on equal speed traffic flow. I need not remind you of the other safety fact. I-50 is our main evacuation road. We all were here during the Caldor fire. Am I done? Yes, thank you.
Thank you. And once again, before Mr. Nelson starts, Ms. Leinhardt, if you have public comment there that you wish to submit from another individual, please submit that to our clerk for entering into the record. Thank you.
Dave Nelson, or also known as David Nelson. I wanted to talk about the Highway 50 changes that they're proposing and make a request of this board when I get finished with my statements. I think that if you look across the United States today, most government roads that are being built are increasing lanes, not decreasing them. And I think that's for a reason, because more lanes make roads safer, not less safe. In the process of changing this configuration of our lanes up at the lake, creating bike paths where we're eliminating lanes of traffic, car traffic for bike lanes, when, I don't know, I haven't ridden bikes in a few years, but my recollection is when there's snow or ice on the road, it's dangerous to ride a bike. So I don't think it's a good idea to put bike lanes in where it's only going to be used maybe 6 or 7 months out of the year. The rest of the time up there, there's very likely ice on the road or snow. It's just a fact of life that at that altitude and the weather conditions, there's a lot of ice and snow up at the lake for 4 or 5 months out of the year at least. The other issue with bikes is they don't pay any road tax. So I really feel that it's a difficult situation to take roads away from people who are paying taxes and give those roads to people who don't pay taxes. They're looking at making a change from 4 lanes to less at 4 different locations. So you're driving along, all of a sudden the traffic backs up because it's going from 2 lanes in one direction to 1 lane in one direction. It's just a terrible situation. It's not what you want if you want traffic to flow freely and have less of an ecological effect. Every time you slow down and speed up, it causes more pollution. So I don't know where they get the idea that this is going to help the ecology up there. I don't see it happening. Trees like CO2. It's their lifeblood. So, trying to reduce CO2 is like saying, I want to starve the trees. I don't think it's a good idea. But besides that point, I think that the county needs to make a statement to NDOT, and here's my request, that they either take a second look. I think there's improvements that need to be made up there, especially I know of someone who was making a left-hand turn into a residential district and had to stop in the fast lane in order to do that. And that's an unsafe situation. That kind of situation should be improved. But all of this changing lanes back and forth, I think, is really not a good idea. So I got 30 seconds. Here's my request. I would like this board. Okay.
I did
Bye.
write it down. I did write it down. And Commissioner Nelson, it's a pleasure to see you and welcome you to visit one of our meetings again. I think you used to run the timing lights, right? So
Jim Jackson, Johnson Lane area. I wasn't going to speak this morning. I just came down to listen to what the BLM was going to have to say about what's going on in the county. But listening to some of the comments that were going on, I felt, well, okay, I'll give up my 2 cents worth. A few weeks ago, we had an individual camping out in the no camping area in the BLM. It took a week to get him out of there. He came up with every excuse in the book on why he couldn't get out. One was, I didn't know I wasn't allowed to camp here. He was camping 3 feet away from the no camping sign. We called the sheriff, we called the BLM. They all came out, and every time he gave a different excuse. My truck's broke. I don't have a driver's license. I can't find somebody to tow me out. After about a week, he got out. What it gave me the opportunity to do is when we were out there, a lot of people were coming in camping, and we got to talk to a lot of them. And we asked them, do you know what's going on with this road here and what it could turn into? And they all said, no, we don't know. We explained it. And they said, well, we'll never come back because it won't be safe. And there was a lot of campers out there, a lot of people with their ATVs and motorcycles. To a number, every one of them said, we won't come back. So if this goes through, we're going to take an area that is supposed to be a multi-use area and make it a single use for a company that's going to destroy the environment up there, destroy property values on Johnson Lane, and probably get somebody hurt or killed and everything. So I think it's imperative that the county make a stand and say, we don't want this, we don't want it to be allowed. And I hope the BLM does the same thing and realizes that by giving permission to travel across that area, they're going to destroy a lot of property values and possibly get a lot of people hurt. Thank you.
I'm Terry Kyler. I'm also from the Johnson Lane area. And I agree with the information that's already been given here and expressed. I am very concerned about the Johnson Lane traffic, but I'm also concerned about the actual surface of Johnson Lane and how having however many big, heavy cement trucks are going to impact that surface, which since it belongs to Douglas County, I assume you are going to be partially responsible for taking care of. I also am concerned about the pollution from dust and possible poisonous particulate matter that may be coming out of that mine. I didn't bring it today, but I had seen some research done on other mines that could produce some problems in that area. And I'm very concerned about the potential of water being used, too much water being used out of our water tables up there. It may not impact me. I'm old. I may be in the home by the time the water would be impacted there, but over a 40-year span, which is what I understand this mine is going to be producing, it's got to have some impact on that water table that is negative for the other people who are living there and trying to get along with the mine. So, thank you.
Good morning. My name is Nancy Gilbert, and I want to talk about the NDOT Highway 50 corridor between Spooner Summit and Round Hill narrowing. The issue I have is, has anybody really looked at the density issues of narrowing this roadway in terms of fire evacuation? All of us, I think, recall at the Calder fire that people couldn't get out, and these were citizens. Then a couple of meetings ago, the Board of Commissioners did vote down any kind of reduction in VHRs. So VHRs add an additional, if we take an average of 8 persons per unit, 535 permits in Tahoe, you're adding another 4,300 people into that corridor. So I don't know if there's been, I know that the advisory task force is going to do a density evaluation, but I think that that density evaluation has to be expanded into this narrowing of the roadways, because if the citizens can't get out, and we all agree that a lot of these communities like Marla Bay, Zephyr Cove, Lincoln Park, Elk Point, we all have extremely narrow roads, and where there's a lot of issues with parking. And that goes also into the issue of the introduction of Ordinance 2022-1606, and that is an ordinance looking into prohibiting or restricting parking on Bliss Road or on other streets and highways, including Marla Bay, Skyland, Oliver Park, and K-Rock. And I'm trying to figure out why other neighborhoods were excluded. Lincoln Park has really narrow roads. Elk Point has extremely narrow roads. We've already have as a report or a letter from the fire department suggesting that all of our roads be fire lanes because they're so narrowed. And there's only one egress in and out of the subdivision. So I don't know on that particular ordinance why other communities along that corridor have not been studied to determine whether they should be prohibited or parking should be prohibited. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch your last name. Miss Gilbert, is it? Gilbert.
Yeah.
Okay.
Legally, Avanzino Gilbert. but
Okay.
Gilbert.
On that item, ordinance 2022-1606, today that's for presentation only. However, that has to come back to this board on November 17th for discussion and possible action. So I would encourage you to reattend our meeting and speak to your concerns at that time during public comment.
And
on
that'll
that
be
item.
held here.
No, it will be held at our historic courthouse on 8th. Yes.
Thank you. I'll be
Yeah.
there.
Okay.
Morning. Julie Duda. Transparency and communication. Communicating details to the community brings up questions of commitment to public service. A few questions like, is a minimum lead time of a few days on agenda items respectful to those people who are affected? Or Are the people's elected representatives able to have relevant issues placed on the agenda? Or is communicating only what is required by code sufficient? Spotlighting issues where more communication, not less, is appropriate. Zoning changes and master plan deviations, construction projects in residential areas, mitigative action for projects impacting our bird population. And today, when the community takes on an additional encumbrance of $50 million for reimbursements from future debt financing. Transparency is challenging, but it's the way to go. Thank you.
Is it supposed to go green? No? Okay. I thought the light was supposed to go green. I'm going, it's red.
It seems a little backwards to me also. Yeah, red usually
Yeah,
means stop and
yeah,
green means
yeah.
go, but we're a little different, that's all.
Okay, well, things are different anyway. Okay, I'm going to go on more of a personal note. I'm back. And, I'm Carol Strail. I live at the end of Tony. I'm one of the ones that's going to be affected by the trucks going back and forth. My life will be ruined. I may say that funny, but my life will be ruined there. In all the time, in the last 2+ years, talking with people in the area about this project wanting to go through, everybody is being affected by this. The community is being affected by this. And there is no way that anybody can convince myself or anybody else that if this goes in, it will change every people's life. Again, I can reiterate that land use policy 6 and 2.4 over and over again. But again, these are people's lives. Carson Valley, and especially on the east side where we live, will be totally changed forever for at least 40 years. So all I can say is it's simple. Someone needs to, and particularly I'd say the excavating company and even maybe the tribal people, find a different route to go away and not disrupt everybody's lives for the next 40 years. I mean, there is so much involved that all of the aspects of this need to be taken into consideration. And I'm hoping that you will do this. I mean, we put you there for the community, for Carson Valley, for Douglas County. And I think you need to represent us and help us get through this. There's a solution, but allowing it to go through the way they want it to go through, no, I don't agree to that. Thank you.
Good morning, Brett Tibbetts. I am a 12-year resident of Cave Rock, and I am here today to oppose the NDOT plans for Highway 50 for 3 reasons at this point. One is, yes, we have a safety problem, but the safety problem is because people speed. For most of this area, the speed limit is 45. It drops to 35 at KL, 25 at State Line. People drive 65, 70. There is no enforcement of the speed limit, none. I've never seen anybody get a ticket. So if we would enforce the speed limit, we would not have a problem. Or better yet, let's limit the whole thing to 35, like they do at KL by the government center up there. The other thing is that the NDOT plan has merging lanes where they're merging from 2 to 1. You know what's going to happen with that plan. People are going to speed up to get around and we're going to have bigger issues. So the plan's pathetic because TRPA wants a bike lane. The other thing is evacuation, which has been mentioned. I assume everybody here remembers the fire in Paradise, California in November 18. They had done the exact same thing as NDOT wants to do to us 2 years before that fire. It was a 4-lane road going in, and they moved it to a 2-lane road for traffic diversity, bike lanes and walking. I have an article here from the LA Times. Obviously, most of the town was destroyed and people could not get out because of the limitation on the road. The third reason I oppose this is this NDOT listening tour is a complete travesty. They do not want to hear from the public. 2 years ago, we had public forums. Everybody was opposed. I probably know 400 people at the lake. I don't know one person in favor of this. This listening tour, you go to their meeting and they have a bunch of cubicles set up. So you go from station to station. They aren't doing manning up like you guys do week after week and hearing public comment. They don't want public comment. At the very least, you ought to force them to do that and have a meeting where people could get up and express their views. So for those reasons, I oppose and I thank you.
Thank you. Before we go any further, Ms. Johnson, could you, we're having noises behind us here that are distract. I don't know who we should have look into that, but we have noises going on above us. It's very distracting. I don't know if we can, I don't know if you can, if we can do something about that, but the noises behind us are very distracting to us trying to pay attention and listen. Thank you. Okay. Mr. Ursick.
Okay. Good morning. My name is AJ Ursick. I'm a resident of Johnson Lane community. From the outset of this PRM issue, from the very beginning, the initial door-to-door flyers included the following county land use references. Land use goal number 6 and land use policy 2.4. Number 6 says that that county will identify particular areas within Douglas County where the residents desire to preserve or develop distinctly rural communities. Our community has been described in this way, quote, due to our specific location, the variety of families and the natural environment, our area has developed into a distinctive community exhibiting the rural characteristics of inclusivity, country values, resulting in a unique composite of new young families with children to grandparents and retired folks, unquote. The County of Douglas has made significant efforts in achieving this goal. Appropriately, the community appreciates this. However, certainly this success is severely diminished by the addition of some 170 gravel trucks, heavy gravel trucks, traveling along Johnson Lane roadway each day, along with the other associated impacts. Indeed, during the 4-decade duration of the PRM, for this most part, the success, your success, will be destroyed. Land use policy 2.4 states Douglas County shall protect residential neighborhoods from encroachment of incompatible activities or land uses which may be have a negative impact on a resident's living environment. Although this policy may be directed towards stationary development, it is clearly appropriate to define the daily incursion of 170 heavy gravel trucks along Johnson Lane roadway as a incompatible activity and land use which is a negative impact on a residential living. I really don't believe a contrary position is defensible. Douglas County was designated as a cooperating agency for the purpose of ensuring that the BIA public comment and cooperating agency files will be complete regarding the revised EA. The BIA file may be complete regarding the simple acceptance of this requirements letter submitted by the Board of County Commissioners. However, as a cooperating agency, I find the BIA capricious in its approach to Douglas County. Notwithstanding, Douglas County has adopted by evidence supported by Land Use Goal 6 and Policy 2.4. These are not idle, meaningless texts. These goals and policies were adopted through discussion, debate, and clear-headed observance regarding the desired rule setting by our county. Even when considering the involvement of the federal agencies, these goals and policies should not arbitrarily be pushed aside. Indeed, a cavalier approach is only detrimental to the county and the residents. I believe it is prudent and certainly appropriate for the Board of Commissioners to exhibit a level of authority concerning its enterprise in governing the county of Douglas. I believe a proactive letter of substantive position should be offered stipulating committed support of the county goals and policies. Protecting the community of Douglas County is not an optional endeavor. Thank you. Hi, Michelle.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and fellow commissioners. For the record, my name is Janet Murphy, and I'm here today also on behalf of the East Shore 50 corridor proposal by NDOT. And as you know, I had earlier passed out a plot of an alternative as far as the East Shore corridor. It's also, if anybody wants to see it, it's also on the back table too for your taking, but it's an alternative. I had gone many, many months ago to the NDOT Board of Directors, who is of course our Governor Steve Sisolak and some other Board of Directors who had directed the staff at NDOT to work with Douglas District because of the fact that our utility district, the sewer runs along the entire length of the project, pretty much like 80% from Spooner all the way to State Line. So, and our district is all the way to Round Hill. So anyway, I have not been I was supposed to be in those meetings when they were coming up and working up the proposal, but I haven't been. But what we have done as professionals have worked within their footprint that they wanted to work in and come up with that plot that I give you, the map as far as an alternative, and it meets all the objectives that they're trying to meet as far as safetiness. Even if they wanted a bike lane, the bike lane is a bike lane on each side of the highway. Because they said it's not about bike events. They said it's about other means of transportation. So as you know, when you ride a bike, you have to go with the traffic. So this plan will be more beneficial than their plan because having the 10-foot path on the east side of the highway with the one lane, you can't have a K-rail. People can't pull out. They can't see around it. If someone blows a chain, they have nowhere to pull off the side of the road. If you get stuck behind an excavator, I can go on forever of why these things are not, it's not workable. I sit at Dead Man's Curve for 30 years. That's where my office is. So I'm very familiar with the highway. And so if you look at this plan, you can see that it achieves what we do. And my friend that works is Assistant Director Darren, who's here in the audience, had told me many, many months ago that as far as safetiness, because that's what we're about, what is utilities, safe, health and welfare of the people. So that's what we're trying to achieve as well as NDOT. And that is to slow down the traffic. And I did some studies nationally for the National Department of Transportation, and it was in agreement with what Darren had told me from NDOT here in Nevada, and that is to narrow the lanes. So I narrowed the lanes to make it safe and put a center lane for people to turn in down the entire way. And if you want a bike lane on each side, there's enough space for that. So if you look at that, I think it meets all the objectives that they're trying to meet and keep with the safety and lower the speed by 5 miles an hour. Thank you. Happy holidays.
You need some Halloween candy? Is there any other public comment here in chambers or in the ballroom? I suppose we're not in chambers today. Seeing none, Ms. Johnson, is there any public comment online?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Marsha Johnson for the record. We do have a few people online with their hand raised. Kathy, do you have opening public comment at this time?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please state your name and then we'll start your time.
My name is Kathy Oyster. I am going to follow up with what many of your guests in the room have stated, and that is that outsiders seem to be trying to control Douglas County. And we really would appreciate if you commissioners would take control and exert some of that. For instance, TRPA is trying to push this bike lane through, and real estate investors are pushing their vacation rentals through. We have significant problems with enforcement across the board in Douglas County, especially at the lake. One of them is regarding the vacation rental program. And I'll give you an example. Some occupancies are incorrect as stated on the ArcGIS, or at least the program enforcement is non-existent. I submitted a complaint where the ArcGIS said an occupancy was X number, and that address had advertisements showing a greater number. When that was brought to the program manager's attention, I was told that there was a question about what the correct number was. And even if it were being violated, this advertising, there would only be a warning letter. At the October 13th meeting, the commissioners were told in no uncertain terms from both sides of that argument that the bad apples need to be reprimanded. So that would be a pretty clear indication that when you have an occupancy number of, say, 10 and an advertisement of 12 or 14, that's going to be a pretty impactful error in the neighborhood and probably along this roadway, this corridor you're talking about. So I would really like it if you would implement the rules that currently exist and demand that enforcement take place. Additionally, since you approved moving forward with the advisory committee, it would be helpful for them to have deadlines to meet, milestones that would help you achieve your uniform goals. There are no milestones. The last time the code was, that the meeting was held to discuss the code was September 21st. There was no meeting for the code in October other than to report to you, and 3 of those advisory board members were present, but there was no conjecture about where it was going. You simply heard from them and told them, keep going. So this 18-year program that continues to have the exact same problems year over year, revision after revision, is now submitted for yet another open-ended timeframe. So if you could insist upon deadlines and get some code put in place that is enforceable, not subjective, that would be helpful.
So, Ms. Johnson, additional public comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Marsha Johnson for the record. Jason, do you have opening public comment?
Here. Jason Garrett Gibson, on behalf of the Foundation for the Law of Time and the people of the state of Nevada, good morning. We have a certain theory to introduce today as to why our ancestors chose October 31st to enter into statehood. By means of American maxims of law, along with their state and federal constitutions, which will serve to remind this council of what the will of the people here in Douglas County really is. We will ask that the record will show that all political power is inherent in the people by decree of God. Thus none can exist except it be derived from them, meaning us, meaning we the people. We the people are being represented here today. You can reach us at 775-309-1262. We'd like to remind our trustees and public servants and city elect of their oath to protect the rights of their constituent citizens and all Americans. Thank you. We will recite for the record the Nevada State Constitution, Article 1, Section 9, liberty of speech in the press. Please notice every citizen may freely speak, write, and publish his or her sentiments on all subjects, being responsible for the abuse of that right, and no law, statute, or ordinance shall be passed to restrain or abridge the liberty of speech. Furthermore, under Article 1, Section 10, the right to assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances, that the people shall have the right to freely assemble together to consult for the common good, which we're doing today, to instruct the representatives and their city-elect for a petition, if needs be, and to notify the legislature for redress of grievances. Law is a rule of right, it's not a privilege, and whatever is contrary to the rule of right is an injury. These are maxims of law by Charles A. Weisman, 1590. The law is not to be violated by those in government. Further maxims in law. With regard to the application of such references, we will now resort to the agenda pamphlet. Give me a moment to toggle over. Under Forum, Restrictions, and Orderly Conduct of Business, the Board of County Commissioners conducts the business of Douglas County and its citizens during its meetings. The definition of citizen is...
Mr. Gibson, you've exceeded your time limit, so thank you. Ms. Marcia, is there additional public comment online?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Marcia Johnson for the record. At this time, there's no further public comment.
Very good. Bring it back. Commissioner Ingalls.
Along with everything else we've discussed today, especially up at the lake, when Dave Nelson and I were commissioners together, we fought hard against the expansion of the LTVA center up there, and they put that Space Needle in, and there's just more congestion. And now they want to do more congestion, and therefore this Highway 50 expansion. They aren't thinking of the residents up there. And it's the same problem down here with Johnson Lane. But ultimately, what's going to happen, regardless of what the outcome is, we're going to need more sheriff's deputies. They can't keep up with everything that's happening. We just had that big fentanyl bust up at the lake. There was another one at the Ace Hardware parking lot a couple, 3 months ago. Since I've been a commissioner, we've had 2 deputies shot, one almost killed. And this is something that the board is going to have to think about, because when it comes time to doing budgeting, they're going to have to allocate more deputies, because that's the only way you can control the traffic. I think it was Mr. Tibbetts was talking about the velocity of the cars on 50. They just don't have the horsepower to really monitor these things like they should be able to. And the other thing is that this commission has got to ratify the sheriff's contract. It's overdue, past due, and these deputies deserve to get their new contract ratified. We're asking a lot of them, and by saying we love our deputies is nice, but that's patronizing, and we've got to get them paid. Thank you.
Thank you. Since we're done with public comment, we'll go to the approval of the agenda for possible action. Approval of the proposed agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the proposed agenda as presented.
So moved. Second.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Noah-Sad, seconded by Commissioner Ingalls to approve the agenda as proposed. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Approval of the previous minutes for possible action, discussion to approve the draft minutes of October 6th, 2022 regular meeting of the Board of County Commissioners. Entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Tarkanian, seconded by Commissioner Ingalls to approve the draft minutes of October 6, 2022 regular meeting of the Board of County Commissioners. Since no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Consent calendar. Entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar items as presented, items A through L.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the consent calendar as presented, items A through L.
You seconded it?
Second.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Rice, seconded by Commissioner Noasad to approve the consent calendar items as presented, A through L. Any discussion? Sensing no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Okay. We've been in session for an hour, and so I'm going to suggest a 10-minute break here to allow us to use the facilities, and we'll come back before we get into the administrative agenda. So we'll be back at 11:10, please. Thank you.
Recording stopped.
I did want to mention, excuse me, Mr. Jackson.
Down in front.
It's 11:10, so I'd like to get started again. I did want to inform the public and the other commissioners that we received a notice from at the hotel that they did hire some construction people that are here today. So we may be interrupted every once in a while with hammer banging. Hopefully not, but anyways, something I probably should be doing around my house is banging my hammer because I only have 100 projects there to do. Anyways, 11:10. So at this time, we'll go into our administrative agenda for presentation only. Item number 1, presentation by the Nevada Department of Transportation, NDOT, regarding the county consultation process, NDOT annual work program within Douglas County, and the One Nevada process. This is being presented by NDOT Executive Leadership Team, Deputy Director Darren Tedford, and I know that I'm going to butcher that name. Sulaharia. Oh, good. Okay, not bad. So, anyways,
good morning.
You may
Thank
proceed.
you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. The department is happy to be here today to make this presentation. A short summary of what I want to cover today. This is a recurring process, the engagement between our local community partners, our counties, our towns, our cities, and what NDOT is doing or plans to do on roads all across the state. I'm going to cover our engagement process, as you mentioned, how our One Nevada process has been implemented and is working. Cover what we've done in Douglas County for our annual work program, and touch on a couple other initiatives that we have. Just a little background for miles of county that, miles of road in Douglas County that are maintained by NDOT. You see the number there, it's approximately 104 miles. Another bit of information, the amount of motor fuel tax generated, collected in Douglas County. And you can see the time frame there. As I mentioned, our rural engagement process is extensive. It's always up for revision. So we understand that there are many needs across the state, and we want to engage with our rural partners to address as many of the needs as possible that we can across the state. In picture representation, this is our process. We're actually at step 3, but in a revolving process of coming to the counties, discussing what their needs are, what their concerns are, doing analysis of that, coming back and reporting. This is our reporting step, and is indicated here. It's an annual basis. So every year at some time during the year, between winter and fall or winter, spring, we're going to come back, have this process on a continuous basis. And we do this with every county in the state. When we do a workshop, if you permit me, I'll flick back really quick. That step that's on the top is the county workshop, is what we call it. That county workshop is where we are talking about the list, if you will. Every county has a list of high priority projects and projects that indicate needs. There's a safety need, there's a traffic need, whatever the need is typically indicated by some kind of solution or a project. That workshop that we hold on an annual basis is when we collect those needs, talk about what the county's priority is on the list of needs, and talk about what the possibilities are for NDOT to address those needs or cooperate with the county or the city to address those needs. Typically, this is a staff type meeting, a staff level meeting where, as I said, there is a list, needs are discussed, possible solutions, and how we might address those as a team. And I won't touch on the rest of the stages, but as I stated, we're in the step 3 of the annual process is coming to you and letting Douglas County know where we are and what we're working on. We do have our established process. We call it the One Nevada Transportation Plan. Part of that plan is identifying needs all over the state, coming up with solutions. Those solutions are large in number and dollar value, as you can imagine. What we've worked with the Nevada Transportation Board is establishing these goal areas that you can see on the screen. One that was mentioned already multiple times this morning is safety, and it's in the right position. It's number one goal. It's our driver of many of our projects. You can see the rest of the goals there, making sure people can get where they need to go. That's optimized mobility. Preserve infrastructure is pretty straightforward, whether that's roads or bridges or any of the rest of the facilities that we have as a department and statewide. Transforming economies is something that everybody's interested in. And in general, as far as NDOT's concerned, this is making sure the roads are there, adequate, and in the best condition they can be so that businesses, residents, visitors, and everyone else can do what they need to do to make our economy function. For NDOT, connecting communities is a statewide and outside the state borders sometimes effort, but that is making sure that our goods and services can get where they need to go, and whether it's within a town or between communities. And sustainability is something we're all interested in, making sure that we're being responsible with our taxpayer dollars, making sure we're doing the best for the system so that it'll last the longest and we get our money's worth. As I mentioned, we have workshops where we collect and discuss the city and county needs. Needs is an interesting term, but when we come and we have a list of projects, I have that on my presentation to discuss briefly, but when projects come up, they're typically addressing a need, whether it's safety, whether it's preservation, whether it's another need. When we come up with projects and ideas, that's when we're talking about doing something, going out and responding to a need with some type of solution. Here you see a representation of the process when we realize or identify those needs. We go from the concept to the project phase in terms of figuring out what a solution is, figuring out if it's the best solution, refining that solution so that it addresses all of our goal areas, turn it into a project, and get it out on the road. I was going to pull that down, but I guess it's okay up there. The very specific. Now we're getting more specific in District 2, which NDOT has 3 districts, but District 2 is in charge of this area. So what you see here is several projects that we're working on, coordinating. Commissioner Tarkanian asked me about the top one, Centerville Bike Lane Extension. These are all projects that we're working on between our District 2 team, which can do local and small projects in coordination with the cities and counties. You see a list there of what we're working on and what we've done. And this slide is our 2023-2024 work program. So these are projects that we have planned for as soon as they'll advertise in the next couple of months to sometime during the year, to the tune of about $120 million planned for investments. So the projects you see there, probably the most eminent one is 395 South from Topaz up to Leviathan. Then Genoa Lane, working on Carson Valley structures, Dressler, and the one on the top is 395 Waterloo to First. These are all preservation projects that we're working on that we intend to advertise in the coming year. Another way that we identify solutions to needs is a statewide passing and climbing lane study. South on 395 towards Topaz, we're going to extend and expand the truck climbing lanes out there where there are two on the way down to Topaz, but we're going to extend those to increase safety. Typically, the indication of a need is number of crashes. You see crashes, we identify what type of crash it is, and we do our best to identify what the best solution is for those types of crashes. Another opportunity is NDOT has consultants. We have started this new initiative of local road safety plans. So where a smaller community might have challenge with doing a process that identifies safety needs across their community, NDOT is available to assist, whether it's a county, a city, a town, whichever it is, with a local road safety plan. This includes the analysis of crash data, potential solutions, and how to implement projects to address those. This is open to every community, city, town in the state, and NDOT has this program funded with our consultant support for the next 4 years. That 4 years isn't a deadline or a cutoff, it's just a current opportunity. I'm sure this will be extended. It's our top priority. A quick note on what everyone has heard about the bipartisan infrastructure law. This is federal funding for states and pass-through money for the next 5 years. We're actually now in the second year of the 5-year bill. The bipartisan infrastructure law did increase funding to Nevada, and it increased NDOT's budget by 20% of federal funding and about 10% when you consider our federal and our state funding. Nonetheless, it's more money for us to do more projects with. And it also has, as you can see here, it has a competitive grant option, additional option for additional money. So that's something that we are working with all of our stakeholders to figure out what the best grant application is to apply for in which area. So on an annual basis, the Nevada Transportation Board approves NDOT's annual work program. It's extensive. It's 200 projects. It includes federal and state funding. It includes projects that come from this process of working with the county to determine what projects are needed and prioritize them. That work program and our statewide transportation improvement program, as I mentioned, is driven by the One Nevada process. The data-driven portion of that One Nevada process has been improved, has been increased, and is letting us compare projects statewide, which I don't intend to mean that we prioritize projects by population or by volume on a road. It's much more extensive and considerate than that. I'm happy to answer any questions. I wanted to take a quick mention that there was a lot of discussion today about the Highway 50 project at the lake. I appreciate actually everyone mentioning the public meetings. There have been a lot of public meetings. There's the meeting tonight. We encourage everyone to keep continuing there. I understand and I heard your frustration, but I would say please continue to attend and give your comments, because we are doing our best to factor in all of the goal areas that we have, including safety, including mobility, including preserving our infrastructure. And it's our goal to address the needs of our residents, the needs of our businesses, and the needs of our visitors. It's a very challenging corridor, and we're trying to come up with the best solution possible to address all of the needs there.
Thank you, Mr. Tedford. Did I pronounce that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Appreciate your presentation. So I know that there's board members who have some specific questions. Mr. Rice, considering you're on Zoom, would you like to go first, or would you like to wait?
No, I will be more than happy to go first. One of the comments that was made during public comment was that we're only putting in bike lanes because they're being demanded by the TRPA. And I would like you to expand on that. I believe that it goes far beyond that. If you would be so kind, sir.
I'd be happy to. Thank you. What was stated this morning and what you heard is correct. There are different options being considered for how to supply bike facilities to this corridor. And as everyone that lives here and drives up and down that corridor realizes, from Spooner to State Line is many, many different circumstances, both on the roadway and on outside of what would be NDOT's right of way, in terms of where we as a community could put facilities for bikes. So yes, the TRPA has in their regional transportation plan, they have the intent of providing bicycle facilities circling the entire lake. Obviously, we're concerned here today about the Douglas County portion, but as I said, there's many options being considered. Some of them are on the road, some of them are off the road. At the same time that we consider providing facilities for bikes, we have to make sure that we didn't create an unsafe condition. And so the corridor study that's going on, that these public meetings are a part of, is doing our best to attempt to address the needs of all of the users of the facility. So yes, vehicles, yes, trucks, yes, walking to a degree, but bikes is a concern, and that's why it's being discussed in this way.
Thank you. In addition to that, it's my understanding that many of these bike lanes are being put off highway due to the conflict and the number of bicyclists that we end up having at Lake Tahoe during the summertime. Is this to remove them from the roadway so that there be fewer conflicts between automobiles and bicycle riders?
That is exactly right. And the challenge that is with that, if you've been north into Washoe County and seen the bike lane facilities that we put along from Incline to Sand Harbor, the challenge is even the different range of bicyclists that we have. And you have recreational, you have walkers, you have a family that has their young child on a bike walking and riding along, and you have the bicyclists that would like to ride all the way around the lake on a road bike, on a 10, 20, 30 speed bike with little skinny tires. Our challenge, even with trying to separate the bicyclists from the vehicles, is a person who wants to ride around the lake isn't usually going to use one of those bike paths that we have meandering through the trees, and we have spots to pull out and stop and enjoy the view of the lake. So yes, to your question, and that is my addition to the challenges that we see.
Thank you. And my last comment. I have received many complaints from people saying that in their opinion, NDOT has already decided what they're going to do with the Highway 50 corridor, and that the meetings that we are having are simply methods of convincing us that we need to do it your way, and that there's no input that is being taken from the community. I'm going to assume that you're going to be able to expand on that and let the folks know that this is not what's happening.
Yes, thank you. And also the opportunity to say that we intend to come to this board with a presentation specifically on this project next month. I believe it's going to be scheduled. So even more and additional details, but to your question, yes, the corridor study is a corridor study. The challenge we have of reaching out and contacting all of the stakeholders. I'm glad everyone was here today. The meeting's broadcast and or recorded. I welcome all of your comments, and it's our job to say, okay, NDOT's in charge of this corridor. What does that mean? It's not just NDOT, it's everyone. When we do this corridor study, it's trying to bring all of the stakeholders' input together and find the best solution. And so when we try to do that, we want to hear from the agencies, from the residents that live right there on the side of the road, from the businesses up and down the road. We take all of that input. We have our crash data. We have our traffic volumes. We have speed data that was alluded to earlier, high speeds along the corridor. We try to put all that together to make a solution. Instead of coming to a public meeting and saying, give us your ideas, we use our engineering judgment and we put some concepts out there so they can be commented on. So the comments that you're giving, that we heard today, that they're giving at, we've done over 30 public meetings for this corridor study, trying to reach everyone at least once. Those are all put together to consider what our final plan will be.
Thank you, sir.
How's the weather there, Mr. Rice?
It's a balmy 68 degrees. No snow on the ground here.
Okay. It's on its way. Commissioner Rice, Commissioner Tarkanian, you had some comments or questions?
I just had a few. I know that when you come back, we can discuss this more and we have a full presentation. But the first thing dealing with you said the off-road bike paths and walk paths. I saw when I met with Scott Morgan, he had shown me that. It seems like that would be a much better approach for the Centerville road that I had discussed with you earlier than having it on the road. Because as I mentioned, there's two bridges there. I just think it's so dangerous for young kids to be that close to the cars. I just think that's a great idea. Okay, going to these questions, just real quickly, general questions. The bike paths, are they taking a portion of what the roads would normally have, and that's one of the reasons we're reducing them from 4 down to 3 down to 2 and so forth because of the bike paths? Or, and I know that the turning lane's also in there, but is the bike path taking any of that road work?
That in some cases it would, yes. I say that with, I say some cases because you can imagine the right away, the property limits that NDOT has typically is at the back of the sidewalk if it's there, back of the curb, or a short distance outside the edge of the asphalt. That is our immediate, if you will, real estate that we have to design within. We have the potential to get more right away. That's not the best solution, though the quickest solution. So as a combined design, and I'm just saying generally because there are several options out there along the corridor and even options to the options, but generally we're trying to use the real estate that we have and work within. So if you're picturing the 4 lanes that are there now in some cases and a white stripe on the outside edge and a couple of feet to the guardrail, we have that space basically within the guardrail to work within. So yes, in some cases, narrowing the lanes for multiple reasons, but we would be reducing lanes or taking a lane to provide bike space.
And I assume you understand from the concerns of the people that spoke here today, why that's an issue to them. And I would think that, their concerns of losing lanes is very important. I'm one of the biggest proponents of these bike paths and walk paths. Sure love to see it, but when you're taking away one of the roads of when there's 4 lanes, that's tough. I guess the next question I have is dealing with turning lanes, because I experienced this just recently. There are no turning lanes, at least in the area I was at just recently in Lake Tahoe, and had to stop in the middle of the road to wait to turn. I was scared with my young family that someone's going to rear end us. Is there an option to have turning lanes without losing the 4 lanes?
Thank you for the question. I appreciate that. And that's part of the challenge up there. If I'm saying we have the right of way or the real estate between the guardrails, largely that's the case. Whether we want to have bikes or turn lanes, we have to work typically within where we are. Just more expensive and more time to go outside of our existing limits. So what we're doing and what you'll see at the public hearing or in the presentation materials is where we have crashes that are those left turns trying to turn off of our highway on the inside lane, where typically people are driving faster and may or may not be paying attention. That's where we're trying to make the choice between through lanes and a protected left turn lane. That is one of our main safety concerns. You can imagine cars coming onto and off of the road is a conflict with the cars going through. That's where a lot of crashes happen. So we've analyzed the crash data and attempted to provide those protected turn lanes in the best locations.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Tarkanian. Commissioner Ingalls, you have questions?
Who's pushing for all of these changes up there on 50?
I would say based on the needs indicated are crashes, high speed, and conflicts with traffic movements. That's the underlying need for something to be done. And the determination of what something is this corridor study. So the corridor study is originated from the incidence of over 100 crashes a year along that corridor. And instead of going out there and saying, here's what we're going to do, we took the option of a corridor study to say, how should this corridor function? How can we address the safety? How can we address the needs of the residents, the businesses, and the visitors?
And that includes the bike lane?
Correct. That's one of the goals of the area, is to provide a space for bikes in accordance with the bike users that are there now and the TRPA's goals for bike facilities.
So this is a lot of money that's going to be spent for a bike lane that's used maybe 6 months out of the year. Just a comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Ingalls. Any other questions? Commissioner Nosehead.
Let me understand what you're saying here. If you've got a designated patch of land, which now is dedicated to shoulder and lanes, and we have problems up there with crashes and speedings, but we want to put a bike lane in there, that seems putting the people on the two-wheelers in danger.
So I would respond that the people riding bicycles there are users of the highway. And right now, they don't have a facility designated for them to drive in like the cars do. So the idea that we would provide bike lanes on the road conflicting would be more of a conflict than we're talking about. Also a separated bike path as an option. But the idea that there's no facility there for bikes now, it's a 1 or 1.5 foot shoulder against the rail versus providing a more protected lane for them to be in. Technically, it would be a safety improvement from what's there now, because there are bikes using the road now.
I find it incongruous that you would take out traffic lane area to dedicate to bikes. Now, let's assume if I had it my way, streets would be 44 feet wide. So let's assume that's the way it is. Now you in 44 feet wide would be able to handle any kind of traffic situation. But now you're going to say, I'm going to put in how wide's a bike path?
If it's a striped bike path on the side, typically 5 feet.
5 feet. Okay, so we take 5 feet out of 44. Now you're down to 39
On each side.
on each side. I still am not understanding the power behind getting bike paths in. On Turpo, maybe doing that, but I don't think it's right. Thank you.
So, Mr. Tedford, I appreciate your presentation today and very detailed. But then there's areas that lack detail. So I have some questions in that regard. I'm not going to address a lot of concerns about Highway 50 since that's going to come back to us, other than to echo what my fellow commissioners are saying, is that the shrinkage of available space for traffic, automobile traffic, who pays the major portion of the taxes for these aspects, it seems to be a little bit in conflict with the bikers, in my opinion. But we can go into that later. I do appreciate the tremendous amount of investment that NDOT is looking at putting into our county, well above the annual allocation, or we contribute in about $2 million, $2.5 million a year, right, in road taxes. Mm-hmm. So understanding that your $102 million investment is substantially above that, but at the same point in time, that those are long-term solutions as well. So we have to look at it from a long-term standpoint of sustainability. So I appreciate that. Couple of questions, number of questions here. Our previous process that I've witnessed on the board, even as a member of the public, has been that NDOT has presented this board with a list of projects and allowed this board to go through a process of prioritizing that. So I take it that process is now changed a bit. Is that a correct observation?
That's correct.
Okay. Anyways, so I'm going to go through your slide here because it asks, it brings up several questions. Here on 326, you indicate permitting process underway to install speed feedback signs on Muller Lane. And can you be a little bit more specific in regards to what sections of Muller Lane you're talking about there?
Yeah, if you'll permit me, I think I have a slide that shows, are you looking at this list?
No, I'm looking at your slides here on page 326. I wasn't looking at that. I didn't get it. I don't know that we got a copy of that particular page.
It's not part of the record, but
that's okay.
Yeah, could you, Colleen, Mr. Unterbrink, let me be proper on that. Okay, could you make sure we get a copy of that, and perhaps the commissioners can get a copy of that? So, we really only have one section of Muller Lane that's complete, and that's from 395 west to Foothill. So is that where you're talking about putting these speed feedbacks at?
Yes, I believe so, but I'll confirm.
Okay. So I wanted to go to your work program for 320 on page 327 of your slide presentation. And obviously Waterloo to First, the repavement preservation there, or the pavement preservation there, is extremely important. And I assume that that's going to be done in the spring of 23. It'll be next construction season. Yes. Okay. And then certainly something that's key to me is the California to Nevada state line to Leviathan Mine Road. What are we doing there?
That's basically a preservation project and then some extension of the truck climbing lanes that are there.
Okay, do you have any idea where now that's a truck climbing lane coming, I take it coming north. There's a truck climbing lane there. Is that, you're talking about expansion of that particular one?
Right, from Holbrook to this direction. I believe that one, or going southbound, one of the two.
Okay, all away from Holbrook or just?
Uphill from Holbrook.
Yeah, okay, because we have a short one there now, but.
Right.
Okay, and on you talk about SR 206, and is that a typo there? That's should be Genoa Lane or Genoa Lane, right?
Yes, sir. It should be.
Okay. Okay. So, and I can't help but ask, what is that? There's a line there that says betterments. Can you explain betterments?
Yes, sir. The governor likes me to explain betterments also.
I don't want to be, I do not want to be. Then never mind, okay?
I'm happy to answer your question.
Sorry, but I know that he pays your salary, but we pay your salary.
Understood.
Ultimately.
We're attempting to move away from using that term, but it's a legacy term. When we have preservation projects scheduled on a regular basis for sections of road. The best example I just mentioned was 395 from Topaz to Leviathan. On different roads that we have that have different traffic volumes, we come back on a different basis to repair those, to preserve them. We're not digging them out. We're being as efficient as we can. We'll come back every 10 years, 12, 15, 20 years on a recurring basis, depending on the traffic volumes. In between those major projects that we have to do minor maintenance and preservation. That's what we call a betterment project. So chip seals, slurry seals, restriping, crack sealing, those are all minor maintenance projects that we'll do largely out of our district office. I referred to District 2. Those are minor maintenance projects that we be doing. And we have basically a standing budget where the districts keep track of the timing of those minor maintenance projects. So the term betterment doesn't lean itself towards understanding that. I appreciate the question.
Okay, thank you. On page 328 of your slide presentation, passing and climbing lane studies, we've had a number of fatal accidents on the stretch of 395 south of Riverview going to Leviathan Mine Road and up that section. Have you guys done any studying of line of sight? I know it's very frustrating. I travel that twice a day at least, and that's all at 55 miles an hour. And so we get drivers coming up out of California, and and they all seem to have a very heavy right foot on that gas pedal, and 55 becomes very frustrating to them. And so they're looking for additional passing lanes or something of that nature. But I think, have you done anything in regards to line of sight studies to determine whether or not you have enough markings on those roads, double yellow lines or a solid yellow line on one side or the other, to ensure that we try to avoid those situations? Not that that's going to stop them from doing it. We have encounter the same problems down there with the Nevada Highway Patrol as we do on 50, lack of officers. But if there was an officer down there, he could more than pay for his paycheck on a daily basis by writing tickets for the amount of people that are speeding through that or going over solid yellow lines that are not appropriate. But I hope you're looking deeply into that issue, because it's a concern down in that area. Last November, I know Ms. Unterbrink came down and we visited. We started. We got in my truck and we started at Jack's Right Pass, and we worked north all the way to Topsy, just identifying different areas. It's a little, and she took a lot of photos, and I appreciate that. But some of those areas that we identified that day still haven't been put into this study, and those are some of my concerns. Once again, we still continue to have a real problem in my mind of the lack of merge lanes coming off of Genoa Lane onto 395. Traffic there is scheduled at 65 miles an hour. Most people are traveling 70 to 75, and the ability to get off of Genoa Lane going either north or south without merge lanes is a real potential problem there. So I would hope that you start taking a look at that. When you come up 395 and you stop at Riverview, on the north side of 395, there's 2 lanes, but there's only 1 lane at Riverview. I would ask you to take a look at the additional a right turn lane onto Muller, so that we could have 2 lanes going north, and so we wouldn't have traffic backed up quite so much all the way to generally to as far as the Indian Casino or even Corley Ranch. And then a great concern of the TRE community also is the ability of left turn lanes on 208 going out towards Smith Valley. So those are some continue to be concerns that the residents that I deal with have expressed. So anyways, so we're looking forward to a public workshop again in the spring of 23. Is that right, at our community center?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So with that, is there any additional comments or questions, Mr. Rice, Commissioner Rice?
No, sir, I have no further questions. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Tarkanian, Commissioner Ingalls, Commissioner Nosat. Okay, very good. Once again, thank you for your presentation, and we look forward to hearing you next month, I believe you said, in regards to the Highway 50 corridor program. So the public should be, I would expect a lot of public comment on that. And will that be I don't know that we'll be taking any action, so that'll be a presentation only item also, right? So the public will have to make their comments, or we can perhaps open it up to public comment. Yeah, okay. We may take the odd opportunity to open that up to public comment on that presentation item only. Okay, next month. Thank you very much.
Appreciate the opportunity.
Ms. Dow. Okay, for presentation only, update from the U.S. Department of Interior, Bureau of Land Management, BLM, Carson City District Office of the BLM's activities in Douglas County and surrounding areas. Just so the public is aware, we've asked Ms. Dow, the Carson City District Manager, to make a presentation to us on a quarterly basis. And so this is the continuing process of that. Right? So Ms. Dow, thank you.
Thank you, Kim Dow, for the record. Thank you, Chairman Gardner, Commissioners, Mr. Cates, Mr. Ritchie. I appreciate the opportunity to provide updates on projects in and around Douglas County. So I'll get right to it. I have a number of projects to provide updates on. The Douglas County Sediment Basin Project, you guys are probably familiar with that one. That was a right-of-way application from Douglas County to construct and maintain a regional flood mitigation improvement that contained 11 basins and associated channels, swales, and access roads. The environmental assessment for that project was completed in September, and last month in October, we issued the right-of-way to Douglas County. So that project is now ready to begin implementation. I believe Douglas County has already started with that. The Painted Rock Mine, of course, continues and will continue to be of interest to the Douglas County residents. So a quick update on that one. In coordination with the BIA, we have reviewed the public comments and determined that we will be proceeding with a revised environmental assessment that will address the concerns brought forward during public comment. Additional studies and data collection will be needed to inform the next version of that environmental assessment. BIA will still be the lead on this project and is coordinating with the BLM and Douglas County as cooperating agencies to define those studies in more detail. So what we need to determine next is exactly which studies will we do and what will the scope of those studies be. that's the next work ahead of us. So I don't have a list of those projects yet, or those studies that will be needed, or any information about what the scope will be. I also don't have a schedule at this time because that the schedule will be determined on what those studies will entail. Our Van Sickle Conservation Easement, this is the project that we've been working on for a while. We are endeavoring, the BLM is endeavoring to purchase a conservation easement on the Van Sickle Station property. This will provide additional trails and recreational opportunities to the public. We are currently working through the contracting process to complete the title, and I hope that we are able to bring this project to a conclusion in the next couple of months. Our post-fire restoration at the Indian Creek Recreation Area, of course, this is in Alpine County, but tends to be of high interest to folks from Douglas County who usually visit that area quite a bit. We are continuing to clean our campground area of the hazards that were left over from the Tamarack fire. We also put a request for bids out to do a salvage logging operation, and that is basically to remove the dead trees that are creating a hazard or a potential hazard in the future. We did not receive any bids for that, so we were now going to proceed with a contract where instead we will pay someone to remove the hazard trees from that area. We also just found out yesterday that we have some seedlings available that are ready to go in the ground. So my staff is madly scrambling to make a plan to get those seedlings into the ground at the Indian Creek campground. We just found out yesterday, so they are working on that feverishly. The Nevada statewide resource management plan revision has not changed since the last update, but just a quick recap of where we are with that. This is an effort to revise all of our district's resource management plans under one environmental impact statement. That project is not funded for this year. So right now, our state office is leading the effort in continuing to gather information, do stakeholder outreach, meet with tribal organizations, and that kind of information. So we don't have any new information, unfortunately, to share on that. We'll be waiting for funding to come in before we're able to really move forward with that. It's not on my list that I submitted to Marcia at the beginning or in advance, but I did want to update you on 2 new special recreation permits that our office is processing. One is from Full Access Tahoe. They requested a special recreation permit to conduct both guided and self-guided off-highway vehicle tours on lands managed by the BLM in the southern end of the Pine Nut Mountains east of Gardnerville. The tours would range in length from 2 to 4 hours and would operate annually from April 15th to November 15th. The second special recreation permit application that we received is from Tim and Tracy Nelson. They have requested a special recreation permit to conduct guided off-highway vehicle tours on BLM lands on the western side of the Pine Nut Mountains, east of Carson Valley. This would be part of the amenities offered through their Airbnb vacation rental unit on their private property in Minden. The tours would have a maximum group size of 8 guests, and the Nelsons or their staff would be driving the UTVs at all times. Tours would be on demand and would range up to 4 hours and limited to 35 trips per calendar year. So we're in the process of processing those special recreation permits now. And if that's information that the commissioners would like to hear on our regular updates, what type of special recreation permits we are processing, I'd be happy to add that to our regular updates. Lastly, I would like to introduce you to Brady Owens here with me today. As you know, I transitioned into the district manager position at the Carson City District. I think there was some concern that the district managers keep leaving, but I'm still here and I still plan on being here. So Brady Owens is filling in behind me as the acting Sierra Front field manager. He has a wealth of experience that he brings with him. His permanent position is in the Elko district as the assistant field manager, but he also has experience in Wyoming BLM, California BLM, and from Texas, from the Guadalupe Mountains National Park. He's on day 9. He's doing a remarkable job getting up to speed, but I felt like I should probably give the update for today. So that is all of the updates I have. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Rice, any questions of Ms. Dow?
I do not. I want to thank you for the update. I know that there's people who would like to hear a little more update on the access to the Painted Rock Mine. And I'm not sure that was on your plate for today.
I think she did give us, I think Ms. Dow did give us an update on Painted Rock Mine in that there needs to be an expanded environmental assessment by BIA to address all the questions raised by the public in this process. Is that correct?
Correct, yes. And that will require additional studies and information gathering. So that will take some time, and we need some time to also define exactly what studies we need to do.
I'm sorry, I didn't state my question right, but I'm glad to hear that the problem is not going away, and I'm glad to hear that you're still in the process of trying to mitigate some of the concerns of our citizens. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Tarkanian, any questions? Commissioner Ingalls?
In regard to the pine nuts, we've had a lot of problems with off-road activity in the pine nuts where culverts are dug up by the activity out there, and we have a lot of flash floods, and they wind up coming down here in the valley or go the other way. And now you're inviting tours out there. Is there some way to mitigate that so that, when these flash floods do occur, we don't start digging more culverts, because we wound up having to create a whole new department to the tune, the county got sued for the tune of $1.3 million to put in retention ponds and things of that nature because of the flash floods coming out of the pine nuts. And then they kept moving because the ATV activity out there would dig culverts in different locations. So you feel comfortable that this isn't going to happen somewhere else?
So right now, we're just at the beginning stage of processing these special recreation permits. What we have to do is some sort of environmental analysis. I don't know what level these will be, and whether it will be a categorical exclusion or an environmental assessment, but those impacts would be looked at while we're processing these SRPs, special recreation permits. For the next meeting or in advance of that, I can go back and look for maps to look at where these routes are being proposed to be used. They would be existing routes that are out there, but I can certainly go back and look at the maps and in relation to flooding concerns and culverts. I'd be happy to provide that to the commission.
Commissioner Nosset.
Yes, in reference to the tree planting, back when I was a Boy Scout years ago, we planted trees in Michigan. Do you think you might entertain doing that with Boy Scouts in this area?
That's certainly something that we can look at. We do get quite a few requests from Boy Scouts who are looking for opportunities to do their Eagle project, and we absolutely support that. We love to get those types of requests in. Usually they have a project in mind, but if they don't, we can certainly give them a list of projects. In this case, we just got these seedlings yesterday, and we need to get them in the ground before we get blocked out of the campground because of winter conditions. So I'm not sure if we'll be able to really rally folks up together very quickly for this one, but it's certainly something we can look into.
Yeah, something you probably ought to take and look at it, and that would commit the entire troop, which is what, maybe 20 people. And also you might want to know ahead of time when your saplings are going to come in, so you can notify the scouts.
Yeah, this one, the ones that we tried to grow actually didn't happen. And so these are ones that were left over from a different project that we weren't involved with. So we're happy to make use of them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Dow, for your presentation again. I know that there was a question that was brought up by our SLUPAC representative, Ms. Maureen Casey. Ms. Casey, did you get that? Did you get that question answered? Okay, so I want to make sure that occurred. Conservation easements, you talk about, what is it? The Van Sickle Conservation Easement. It's my understanding, if I'm, and correct me if I'm wrong, but is BLM actually curtailing this activity of conservation easements, or what is their process going forward in that regard?
Yeah, it was a proposal under our Southern Nevada Public Lands Management Act. You may have know the acronym SNPLMA. There was a proposal to have a conservation easement that BLM would hold the conservation easement, and it would be for the public to enjoy the trails, put new trails in that area. And so this project was funded through that SNPLMA proposal. It was granted, and so now that's what we're carrying out now. We were almost to the finish line of last summer, I think it was, and the title kind of fell through. So we're trying with a new title company.
Okay, thank you. Seedlings from the Tamarack fire, is there any, I know we did a great job of reseeding with natural plant life in the Topaz area, Holbrook Highlands area, Double Springs area. Are we doing anything in regards to possibly doing some seedlings in the Topaz area or in that area, that corridor that was burned out on 395?
I'll have to go back and look and get back to you on that. Yeah, I'm not sure. We did do a massive seeding project with seeds with aerial helicopter over a large area. And we did that in conjunction with Forest Service and with the state because of course this fire was in all kinds of jurisdictions, but I'm not familiar with whether we have seedlings planned for the Topaz area. So I'll go back and look at that.
Okay, thank you. If there's no other comments, we appreciate your, once again, your quarterly update, and we look forward to seeing you back around the first of the year.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item number 3 now. For presentation only, again. Actually, we only have 2 for possible action items on this agenda today. So for presentation only, item number 3, introduction of ordinance 2022-1608, an ordinance enacting a revision and codification of the general ordinances of Douglas County by amending titles 1, 6, 9, 10, and 13 of the Douglas County Code to 1, redesignate certain vehicle and traffic-related criminal misdemeanors as civil infractions consistent with Assembly Bill 116 enacted in 2021 by the 81st session of the Nevada Legislature, and number 2, define and establish penalties for civil infractions. 3, clarify that certain codified infractions constitute criminal infractions, and 4, remove language that is unnecessarily duplicative. That's not an easy word to say, duplicative of the Nevada revised statutes, and being presented by, I believe, Deputy DA Carrie Rosser. And I know is she online? Oh, there she is, over my shoulder. So, Ms. Rosser.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Carrie Rosser, now contract attorney for Douglas County. Good morning, or good afternoon, I guess now. This item, as the title suggests, is primarily a cleanup item to update our county code consistent with some legislation that was passed in 2021. For the most part, it is aligning our code with some of the changes in the penalties, primarily for traffic violations on our roadways. Prior to enacting this ordinance, if it is enacted, so currently the state of our code is that the majority of our traffic violations constitute criminal misdemeanors. And with the passage of the Assembly Bill in 2021, the county is no longer allowed to impose a criminal penalty for certain traffic violations, which now constitute civil infractions under the Nevada revised statutes. And so as a result of that, we are proposing to update our code consistent with the statutes so that we can continue to enforce the traffic provisions that we have as a county adopted over the years. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. And otherwise, I appreciate that you have read this into the record.
Thank you, Ms. Rosser. I know this item will be coming back to us on November the 17th at our meeting for action. But if there's any comments or questions by the commissioners at this time, entertained. Commissioner Rice, any questions?
No questions, just comment. When I first saw that this was on our agenda, I bristled. With my law enforcement background, I know exactly what these changes in the NRS, Nevada Revised Statutes, are going to do to prevent law enforcement from doing their job and removing many cases of probable cause for making a stop and search. And I'm sure that that's exactly what the liberal legislature had in mind, was to handcuff the police. But after having read the information that came along with this, I realized that if we don't do this, then the county of Douglas is going to be losing money that will be going to the state and further depleting the resources for our law enforcement. So I can't see that I have any choice but to, when this comes before us, to vote to approve it. But I had to let my disdain for this not go unverbalized. And having said that, I have no further comment.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. Commissioner Tarkanian, you have questions? Okay, I wasn't sure that was your hand was raised to talk or to wave me off. Commissioner Ingalls.
Could you give us an example of what constitutes a misdemeanor, or what laws will be changing here?
I appreciate that question, Commissioner Ingalls, and that it's actually quite a broad range of violations that it covers. So in the Nevada Revised Statutes, the traffic provisions are codified in chapters 448A primarily. There are more of them, of course, but 448A through 448E, which is almost one full book of the statutes on the shelf. Essentially, I mean, some of I'm trying to think of a specific example now that we've gone through so many of them. There are some speeding related infractions that would now be civil infractions as opposed to a criminal misdemeanor for the lower mile per hour violations. Our parking is included in this. So parking violations would now be a civil infraction. But there are a number of categories that are specifically excluded from this, which I think might be a more helpful thing for me to address, which is, for example, if someone is under the influence, then the violation could still constitute a misdemeanor as opposed to under the influence of a controlled substance or alcohol. Some violations such as not having insurance would still be a misdemeanor. And if you would like a more comprehensive list, I'm happy to provide it to you. We have a spreadsheet, which luckily was prepared by another county, which goes over the entirety of that code and says exactly what was transitioned. I'm happy to provide that for you if that would be helpful.
No, thank you. It just seems like it's more of a burden being placed on the deputies when they're in the field and they have to deal with all of this. Thank you.
Commissioner Nostead? Okay. Ms. Rosser, as I understand this, actually, the reduction from a misdemeanor to a civil infraction actually also has significant impact in regards to the fining process when a traffic violation is incurred. Is that a correct assumption?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, that's disappointing, obviously, and it's been expressed by the rest of us. So anyways, that'll be back in front of us in a couple of weeks. So thank you very much for joining us today, Ms. Rosser, and presenting
It
this.
was nice to see you.
Okay, item number 4 for presentation only. Introduction of Ordinance 2022-1606, an ordinance amending Douglas County Code Chapter 10.12 relating to regulations for parking by 1, prohibiting or restricting parking on Bliss Road and on certain streets and highways within the following general improvement districts: Marla Bay, Skyland, Oliver Park, and Cave Rock Estates, together with other matters properly relating thereto. And number 2, removing the parking prohibition on Algus Road, which now accommodates residential parking. And number 3, including a provision regarding parking spaces designated for persons who are handicapped, being presented by our Roads Division Manager, John Erb. Oh, there he is.
I think we're at good afternoon now. So good afternoon, board. John Erb for the record. So Carrie has stayed on, as she can correct me if I'm wrong on any of this. Per NRS 244.357, our county code requires adoptions through resolutions pertaining parking to be brought forward for ordinance. We've gone through our county code and there's some pieces missing or items that need to be taken off. And this does exactly that. And we've also included some requests by some of the general improvement districts for no parking up at Lake Tahoe. So in regards to this ordinance that was just read into the record, this will help clean up our county code and help make these areas of no parking enforceable with the sheriff's office.
Thank you. Questions by the commissioners? Once again, this is a presentation only, so this is the introduction. It'll be coming back to us in 2 weeks where we will have a further presentation and more public comments. Commissioner Tarkanian, Commissioner Ingles, Commissioner Noah. The only thing that I wanted to mention is by enacting these, this will improve the ability of the GIDs, especially in that area, to keep the roads clean during the weather portions of the year. Is that one of the goals here?
That is correct. Especially for Oliver Park, their board had requested seasonal no parking. Their streets are very narrow, and when there are cars parked along the road, it makes it almost impossible for a snowplow to safely get through without either blocking the cars in or hitting the cars. So that was their request.
Very good. Okay. Since I know nothing else.
Commissioner, Chairman Gardner,
yes.
If I might just very briefly, I apologize for not making this correction on the past item, but both of these items are actually planned for their second reading in the first meeting in December.
Okay. So we'll see you in December, November 17th.
Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification, Ms. Rosser. Okay, we'll go to item number 5 then for possible action, discussion to adopt resolution 2022-R-110 to allow the reimbursement of Douglas County expenditures incurred for the Judicial Center project from the proceeds of any future tax exempt financing issued for the project. This will be presented by our Chief Financial Officer, Terry Willoughby, and one of our Deputy District Attorneys, Zach Wadley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Zach Wadley with the Douglas County District Attorney's Office for the record. The Judicial Center project continues to progress. As part of that project, the county expects to incur various contract costs, including the cost of an architect to complete the final design of the building, and likely a construction manager at risk pre-construction services contract to assist with the efficient design of the center. Those contract costs are likely to come in front of you for approval prior to the issuance of any tax exempt financing for the overall project. The plan would be to roll those contract costs in to the ultimate financing that was issued for the overall project. In order to do that, federal treasury regulations for tax exempt debt issuances require the board to approve this resolution that's before you today to essentially declare your intention to potentially incur those project costs, those contract costs, and reimburse the county from the proceeds of any future tax exempt debt issuance that is issued. So that's why this matters here before you today. It's really a technical legal item. But if there are any questions about it, I'm happy to entertain them. Thank you.
Ms. Willoughby, did you have anything to add?
Terry Willoughby, for the record, I have nothing further to add to this. We're so typical routine resolution. We want to make sure we get the most from the financing and that the county is not out any money. So that's why we're here today.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Rice, any questions?
No, sir. It's straightforward.
Okay. Commissioner Tarkanian, Commissioner Ingalls? Okay. You want to turn on your mic? Thank you.
So this would be in consideration of taking on future debt?
This resolution, Zach Wadley, District Attorney, Deputy District Attorney for the record, this resolution would allow the board the ability to recoup these contract costs for the Judicial Center project from the proceeds of a potential future issuance of tax exempt debt. Yes.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hosep?
No, thank you.
Okay. I don't have any questions. So I will entertain a motion to adopt resolution 2022-R-110.
So moved.
Oh, I stand corrected. You're right. Thank you for that clarification and reminder. Okay. So this is for possible action. So at this time, we'll entertain public comment. Is there any public comment here in chambers or in the ballroom? You want to turn on the mic?
Okay. All right. James McCallum for the record. I have just a comment, really. It's a form of a question. Is this already planned as a CMAR project? Or are we at that point yet?
Terry Willoughby for the record.
Yes, I'll allow staff to answer that question. Sure.
Terry Willoughby for the record. That's a proposal. It hasn't been decided yet. That will come back to the board.
Thank you.
Okay. Any additional public comment here in the ballroom? Sensing none, Ms. Johnson, do we have any public comment online?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Marsha Johnson for the record. At this time, I do have one person online with their hand raised. Jason, do you have public comment on item number 5?
Here, Jason Gibson, people of the state of Nevada. On May 19th, the federal government committed us along with our county. Our county followed suit with the federal government to commit us to a $40 million expenditure. Commissioner Engels clarified that the $40 million to be financed would come with $17 million in debt financing. That's $57 million. With the $5 million that's added to the $57 million for the land, we're at $62 million. None of these equations or considerations or numbers keep pace with the unprecedented inflation. There seems to be very little to no consideration for the additional debt that the county has assumed by funding a $38 million entertainment facility in the face of an imminent attack, which has been declared as World War III by the Vatican. We will not find any safety provisions or emergency protocols for preparation within today's agenda. We are opposed to the further ballooning of the police state. We know that we can do better, that peace through culture is the way. We've submitted several notices with intent to collaborate with the county in developing a solution-based center across from the JLEC facility, which would essentially be occupied in the mill building of the Bentley Nevada Corporation. And there are better ways and better alternatives to spending these monies. But since we're dealing with a fact-resistant state who's aloof to what's happening in the bigger picture, we are geared to represent the people of the state of Nevada. We're at 775-309-1262. And because of the profiling and targeting of the county over this issue, we cannot keep pace with the notices and affidavits and the pleadings, which will surely follow in the near future. So just know that we do stand opposed to any further development on these issues, and we appreciate your ear. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson, is there any additional public comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Marcia Johnson for the record. At this time, there's no further public comment online.
Very good. Now I will entertain a motion to adopt Resolution 2022 R-110 to allow the reimbursement of Douglas County expenditures incurred for the Judicial Center project from the proceeds of any future tax-exempt financing issued for the project.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Noasat, seconded by Commissioner Ingalls to adopt Resolution 2022 R-110. Sensing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. We will go to item number 6 for possible action, discussion on the adoption of Ordinance 2022 R-1607, an ordinance amending Douglas County Code Chapter 2.26 relating to China Spring Youth Camp by 1, creating an executive committee, 2, renaming the advisory council to advisory board, and 3, changing the membership and duties of the advisory board together with other matters properly relating thereto. And this is the second reading, being presented by County Manager Patrick Cates.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I think the title for the agenda item is pretty self-explanatory. These changes are being proposed at the request of the China Spring Working Group, which is an ad hoc group that was formed under NACO as part of our agreement with the legislature. And it has participation from all counties that participate in China Spring. That would be all counties in Nevada with the exception of Clark County. As you described, it takes the existing council and makes it an advisory board, and it changes the membership a little bit. Basically, the membership is appointed by the various district court judges that participate. And so there's some changes to that. It also requires that they have a background related to juvenile justice. And it gives them some more specific duties and meeting frequency than they have in the current ordinance. It also establishes the executive committee. The executive committee would consist of 3 individuals. One of those would be a 9th Judicial District Court judge, who is currently Judge Young, who has oversight of the camp, as well as 1 Board of County Commissioners from Douglas County that is approved by this body, as well as the elected chairman of the advisory board. Currently, Judge Young, as an example, sits on the advisory board, and they really wanted to separate that so there was some clear governance. So it'd be a board of 3 people that would have that oversight of the camp. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Commissioners? Commissioner Rice?
No, sir, no questions.
Commissioner Tarkanian, Commissioner Ingalls? Commissioner Noah? Okay, I don't have any questions either. This is an action item, so at this time, we'll open the floor for public comment. Is there any public comment here? Sensing none, Ms. Johnson, is there any public comment online?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Marsha Johnson for the record. At this time, there's no public comment online.
Okay, we'll bring it back to the board. Sensing no further comments, then I'll.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt ordinance 2022-1607 as presented.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Rice, seconded by Commissioner Noah to adopt ordinance 2022-1607. Since no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. We'll go into item number 7 for presentation only. This has been changed just a little bit, commissioners. So announcements, reports, and updates from the county commission members, including updates on the various boards and or commissions that they may be a member of or a liaison to, or meetings, functions they have attended. So we've added the word announcements there. So if the commissioners, we would kind of prefer that the commissioners take this opportunity versus the closing public comment to make any announcements or comments that they wish to make besides their reports and updates. So just a slight change. I hope everybody's been good with that. So we'll start down at the end. We'll start with you, Mr. Rice. Commissioner Rice, any announcements, reports?
Yes, sir. I attended the Tahoe Transportation Division Implementation Committee yesterday, and we, over the objection of the California representative, we approved the purchase of 4 new diesel-powered buses due to the fact that our current fleet is deteriorating and unable to get parts, and the fact that we are nowhere near ready to be converting all of our buses to electric vehicles. So it was gratifying to see that cooler heads prevailed, and we did approve the sending to the full body the recommendation that we purchase these 4 buses. And other than that, I am in Oklahoma, and thank you, Zoom, for allowing me to not miss a meeting while being able to be with my relatives. Thank you.
Thank you. Sure, Mr. Eagles.
Commissioner Rice, what was the approximate cost of one of those buses?
The approximate cost was $60,000.
Commissioner Tarkanian?
Just one announcement. Tonight at 5 o'clock, Wadets is hosting a fundraiser, raising money for the Sheriff's Department, a new building they're building for them.
Very good. And Commissioner Ingalls, did you have anything else to share? No? Okay, Commissioner Noah? No? Okay. So, and I will announce that I'm doing my monthly coffee and conversation tomorrow morning. It'll be at 8 o'clock. It'll be at DST Coffee, and I'll be joined by Assembly candidate Ken Gray. So I would also encourage everybody to vote. Okay. Although the county is apparently doing well in regards to voter turnout, I would encourage us to step up the pace. Every time we have an election, Douglas County tends to lead the state in regards to voter turnout, and I would hope that that would be the case this time as well. I would encourage you to vote early, as it appears that there is going to be weather on Tuesday. Not whether or not you want to vote or not, but weather in regards to possible snow and inclement weather. And if you want to avoid the long lines, I would encourage you, you have 2 more days of early voting. That's the rest of today and tomorrow at either the historic courthouse on 8th or our community center on Waterloo. So once again, I encourage you to get out and vote. Please take advantage of that opportunity here in the United States. So with that, I have nothing else, and we'll go to closing public comment. So at this time, public comment will be taken on those items that are within the jurisdiction and control of the Board of Commissioners, or those agenda items where public comment has not already been taken. And I see Ms. Leinhardt.
I just want to respectfully request a meeting at the lake, just like the VHR meeting, in regards to the I-50 corridor changes. Thank you.
Ellie Waller, I'd just like to recommend, as I put in my comments, it's easy to navigate the NDOT site. You go find the future studies 29-page report from Wood Rogers. Some of their information is stale and still incorrect, which is really kind of problemsome. The report's dated August 2022. Also, the regional transportation plan gives numbers that will project costs. If we're talking about the State Route 28 state line to state line bikeway, infrastructure investments are needed to complete the trail along the entire East Shore, Incline Village to Spooner Summit, parking and safety enhancements, pedestrian crossings. They have a projected cost of $68 million. How much are they going to ask Douglas County for? They're going to have to go to Carson City, who usually doesn't have to integrate into these processes because there's no housing along that 28 corridor. So we may need to be talking and coordinating with Carson City as well. They do talk about the US 50 state line community revitalization plan. That was dated March of 2021. Obviously, that is now stale. That is the loop road, which right now is in flux. We don't know what the city of South Lake Tahoe is going to do about their side. They're in favor of affordable housing right now. I'm hoping that our staff, whoever it's going to be, can take the time. The RTP from TRPA, the Regional Transportation Plan, it's over 500 pages. You can go through and do searches and find critical data like I have. And I would appreciate knowing that staff, although we're understaffed, we may need more people hired for the regional transportation district area. And also we should be paying attention to what NDOT is giving the Tahoe Transportation District in funding for the microtransit. If they're going to be integrating some funding into that, then our expectations are going to go up. So we need to be talking to NDOT about the bigger picture about microtransit. There's no such thing. I've already said it once today. It's not free.
For the record, Janet Murphy, I just wanted to point something out in the NDOT presentation by Darren today. If you look at one of the slides, it says passing and climbing study lane. Lack of passing opportunities can increase unsafe passing movements. Increases unsafe passing movements result in increased crashes. Addition of passing and climbing lane reduces head-on, sideswipe, and runoff crashes. So it goes against everything that they were just saying about having one lane versus two. Just wanted to point that out for you. Just tell me to sign my name. But thank you. And I think you all understand. And like I said, I'm here for about safety, always have been. And that's all I'm trying to achieve. And also the emissions. Thank you.
Is there any additional public comment here? Sensing none, Ms. Johnson, is there any additional public comment online?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Marsha Johnson for the record. Jason, do you have closing public comment?
Here, as you all are well aware, as of recent, the U.S. Department of Justice military has issued an imminent attack notice. The Vatican has formally declared World War III, which is actually World War VII. World War III was the Twin Towers on September 11th, 2001. The U.S. has formally entered the war in Ukraine, boots on the ground, B-52s deployed to Australia and Guam, fast-tracking nuclear warheads to UK, Iran sending missiles to Russia and threatening the national security of Saudi Arabia. South Korea has fired 23 intercontinental ballistic missiles, as you all know, capable of carrying nuclear payload. Tensions with China over Taiwan. U.S. troops are on the ground in the thousands. Unprecedented civil unrest with our within our own borders, and a powder keg of violence spurred by shady politics rooted in corporate fraud, maladministration, government corruption, white-collar false authority, masquerading and doing business as officers of the peace, masquerading as magistrates of the peace, public servants of the peace, as if they were genuine American nationals. And if so, they would be concentrated in deploying the objectives of the Rorich Peace Pact signed by Roosevelt in 1933, which is accompanied by the Banner of Peace, the Natural Law Peace Initiative, and the objectives and aims defined and established by the Foundation for the Law of Time and the World 13 Moon Calendar Change Peace Movement. This county will not spend a single dollar or a single dime in activating the New Time Economy master research plan that we submitted to them. They do not want to endorse these treaties or the peace initiative because that would be the end of fraud as we know it. And need they be reminded? And they must needs be, because we don't see any awareness in the last 7 months that agency is progressively acting on behalf of the safety and security of the people. But we, the people, created and established all governments in our nation, both federal, state, and municipal, that the sole object and only legitimate end of government is to protect the citizens in the enjoyment of life, liberty, and property. And when the government assumes other functions, it is usurpation and oppression. That is a maxim drawn from the Alabama State Constitution, Article 1, Section 35. No power has ever been delegated to any government or any governmental agent to infringe, impair, hinder, or even legislate over these inalienable and natural rights. Now, in closing, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gibson. You have exceeded your 3 minutes. So, Ms. Johnson, is there any additional public comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Marcia Johnson for the record. At this time, there's no additional public comment online.
Okay. So before we close, I did want to acknowledge the attendance of Commissioner-elect Charla Hales. I think that's a safe title now. So anyways, I guess next Tuesday we'll have the final determination, but I assume you voted for yourself, so that's one vote, and that's all you needed, right? Is one vote. So anyways, congratulations, and we'll look forward to seeing your presence here on the board in another little less than 2 months. So anyways, with that, public comment is closed, and we will call this meeting adjourned. Thank you very much for your attendance. We'll be at the historic courthouse as normal on November 17th, 10 a.m. Thank you.
Recording stopped.